Hey guys, Bread God Gaming here. Hope you're having a good day. Today I'm going to break down the contents and review the current CK3 DLCs, and at the end I'll have my ranking list of the DLC. Feel free to skip around the video. I'm going to grade them based on these criteria. The first is role-playing and flavor, how much story and immersion the DLC adds. The best immersion being ones where there is more interaction and consequences. The second is power playing and mechanics, what kind of new mechanics or systems affect gameplay. Some features might feel like pay to win or unrealistic, but this is a simulator and I'm fine with simulating God Emperorhood. And lastly, price and value is a very personal and conflicting topic. For me, CK3 is a primary hobby, so spending 40 bucks a year is fine. So when I say I'd pay full price again in this video, just remember that I play this game a lot. Also, I've never been sponsored by Paradox, so my opinions are mine only. There are three major categories of DLC released by Paradox. The first category we'll go through are the event packs, which are the smallest. They primarily add events based on their theme, with minor if any changes to game mechanics. Wardens is focused on children and education. It has over 100 events making childhood and educating your children more interactive. Some events also give free skill points, which is really strong. You also unlock the influence personality of ward interaction, which allows you to pass on one of your traits to your ward. Either you can perpetuate good traits, or you can sabotage enemy children by teaching them bad ones. The DLC also unlocks the ability to visit a university, which has a 20-year cooldown. Performing well at the university requires good learning, but it can upgrade your education all the way to 5 stars, and it can also provide free perks. And lastly, the DLC unlocks the ability to have a wet nurse, which reduces disease chance for your children and also gives a few more events. So I quite enjoyed this DLC as it made playing a child more immersive, and because the events are only for children, it doesn't feel too repetitive since you only get these events when you have young kids or are a kid yourself. The features of the DLC also make your children stronger and more consistent, so it can be easier to breed a god emperor. Because of these, I would not mind paying full price for this DLC again. Friends and Foes is the second event pack and focuses on relationships. There's over 100 events related to friendships, spouses, rivals, and childhood events. There's also plenty of events that give free skills and bonuses. Like for this example, I have a claim on this county, which is within my cousin and my friend's realm. And because we are friends, he'll actually give me the county just for some gold, some stress, and a weak hook. So that's a very easy way to just get some land. House feuds is a mechanic where a rivalry may elevate into a feud between dynasty members, where the entire families try to kill each other. You also get a nemesis who is a more hateful version of a rival. If your families are big enough, there could be multiple people trying to murder you and multiple deaths to each side. This can spice up your games, or it can start to annoy you with all the crazy amounts of murders. Memories is a little bookmark for rulers and important characters, and will chronicle some important events. This DLC will give you more friends and foes, and some immersion in how you get those relationships, and it also has some great events for free skills and traits. However, there could be more role-playing features, like even if I'm best friends with this hostile faith ruler, because of that, it doesn't allow me to help them in a war. So while this DLC gives a lot of free stuff, there could be more immersion. House feuds are nice, and after some patches have been fixed quite a bit, but it will increase the amount of enemies you have by a lot, and if you hate being murdered, then this will annoy you. Otherwise, this was a pretty small DLC. Because of these reasons, I would only get this DLC on sale, or I would avoid it until they add more ways to interact with the increased number of relationships. Wandering Nobles is the third event pack and is focused on adding events when your ruler travels and to encourage your ruler to travel more. The main feature is that there's now a new lifestyle with 3 new lifestyle trees. The inspector tree is focused on improving your land, like increasing development, taxes, or domain limit. The middle perk here also unlocks an activity, and this is also true for the other trees. For the inspector tree, it's the inspection activity. This activity is focused on improving your land, and you get to pick which benefit you want as the primary goal. In between, you also get choices to increase your chance and or get a bonus modifier, and the bonuses currently are very strong. Like they can give taxes per month, which basically is a refund on your cost, and also a good amount of development for a long time. Inspection has a 2-year cooldown, and you can't go to the same place within 5 years. You also can't go to your capital, so this is mainly to develop your extra holdings or your vassals' holdings. The Wayfarer lifestyle has general bonuses to traveling, and also bonuses to the unlocked activity, which is the hike. Hikes are pretty straightforward. They're mostly for stress relief and a little bit of fame. The Voyager tree focuses on bonuses for traveling to points of interest, and the unlocked activity is a monument expedition. The expedition gives you up to 2 skill points permanently, and the skills are dependent on the location, which you can preview above the location. The expedition also provides many opportunities to recruit excellent courtiers, and also a way to gain resources. The DLC also replaces and adds many events while traveling. Some of them give pretty decent benefits, but also if you don't travel, you won't really see these events. This DLC adds more activities to do, especially during peacetime, and the activities are very strong. However, unlocking the activities does require a few perk points, and it can mean waiting for a decade or longer, and this effect will be especially prominent if you only have old successors. There is an okay amount of immersion and story in the events, more so with the activity events rather than the traveling events. Overall, I would get this DLC at full price again because it has a good balance of role-playing and power playing. Flavor packs are medium-sized DLCs, adding events, mechanics, and flavor, but mostly affect the specific region of the map. Because of this, if you don't care about the theme or don't plan to play in that region, then these will not be relevant to you. There are currently 3 flavor packs. Northern Lords is a Viking-themed DLC, affecting mostly the northwestern part of the map. The biggest feature of the DLC is the Adventurers. This lets Norse and Estonian culture dukes and counts give up your old lands and settle into a new area. For example, if I'm the Jarl of Upland right now, I can come here to Wessex. Then I can go on a Varangian adventure for this Duchy of Wessex. And again, I'll give up all my old titles. And I also get 2,000 special troops. So when I declare war, I get a special adventurer army. And the special troops consist of a lot of men-at-arms. So once we win the war, then you'll see I'll be the Duke of Wessex now. So we also converted to the local government, which was feudal. So adventuring is one of the easiest ways to go from tribal to feudal or clan. And if we take a look at the lands back here, they've all been given up. So now I'm fully resettled into these new lands over here. I can also continue going on adventures as long as they're far enough away, but I won't get special troops after my first success. So because of those special troops, it's actually very easy as an adventurer to settle down into a coveted piece of land, such as here in Wessex, or even like the Duchy of Normandy over here, versus when you're a non-Viking ruler in the region. You may come under attack from adventurers by default every 5 years. You'll get an event where you can either fight them, or you can give them land and vassalize them, or bribe them to go away. But other than these options, there's not much interaction with this DLC as a non-Viking. You can also change the frequency of these adventurers in the game rules, but turning them off or making them rare will disable achievements. The DLC's other contents include 5 new or improved traditions, like Coastal Warriors, which unlocks 3 new men-at-arms, including Bondi, Vigman, and the Varangian Veterans, which are a fan favorite and arguably stronger than the Huskarl. There's also 2 unique innovations of Varangian Adventurers and all things. There's 2 dynasty tracks that are very powerful, especially the Pillage track with its practice kidnappers that give you more imprisonment chance, and also making a killing, which gives gold from battling. There's also 4 special decisions that mostly affect the North Sea area and are extremely powerful, especially the Elevate the Kingdom of Man and the Isles decision. This will give you 7,500 special troops and also give you a lot of renown, but it's also pretty hard to get because you need to have legendary fame. So this DLC buffs up the already strong tribal Viking realms, which lets you roleplay as a fearsome Viking, and it allows for ludicrous gameplay, especially because of these special decisions. The immersion overall is good, but it is noticeably weaker on the non-Viking side where you can't do much. The DLC is also best played in the 867 start date, and it's still possible in 1066, but not relevant in 1178. And although the DLC is mostly for this North Sea region, adventuring lets you easily settle down anywhere in the world, so this DLC is the most global of the flavor packs in my opinion. It's also one of my favorite DLCs, so I would pay full price again. Fate of Iberia is the next flavor pack, and it purely affects the peninsula of Iberia. The most prominent feature of the DLC is the struggle mechanic. This is a unique mechanic that only affects the Iberia Peninsula, and it simulates the long-term historical conflict on the peninsula. It is available in any start date. There will be an icon at the bottom right to showcase the struggle if you are an involved ruler. The conflict has 4 phases that each modify gameplay in different ways. Like in the opportunity phase, wars are more easily waged, and you get access to things like the abduct scheme, which normally requires a lifestyle perk. These benefits for each phase are only for people who are involved in the struggle, which can be seen at the top button here. Certain faiths and also cultures will be involved for the struggle. A special note here is that the wording here is not correct. The wording claims that if an outside culture controls 80% of the counties inside this region, then it will become involved. So if we take a look at my culture, I have a custom culture and it has just one county that's located here inside of Dublin. And even though I actually control most of the peninsula, if we actually take a look at the involvement, you'll see that I am actually not involved, even though I control, as the wording says, 80% of the counties. Instead, if we take a look here, I actually only now control a small portion of this peninsula. However, I've been working on converting more of the counties to my culture so that now, including the county here in Dublin, there are 3 other counties here in Iberia that are my culture. And if I just convert one more, then I should become involved. So if we take a look here, I'm currently still uninvolved because only 3 out of 4 or 75% are in the region. But once we actually have time and it becomes converted, now we have 4 out of 5 within the region. Now you see my culture is actually involved. So again, the wording is incorrect here, and what you really need is you need 80% of your culture or your religion to be present within this region. Once you have made your culture or faith involved, then that religion or culture will be permanently involved, and you can feel safe to spread your religion or culture elsewhere. So that's probably the biggest misinformation of this DLC, especially if you want to have your custom faith or culture involved in the struggle. But now you know. To actually progress struggle phases, as events happen, it will move the struggle towards either phase, and this struggle will never end unless someone takes one of the 3 struggle endings. This can be taken by either the player or any AI ruler. The options are someone can dominate the peninsula, or makes an uneasy peace, or brings the peninsula together. Each ending gives big bonuses and sometimes unique rewards. Like for this one, it allows interfaith marriages. The DLC gives 4 new traditions, including ritualized friendship, malleable subjects, tabletop warriors, and state ransoming. There's also 8 special decisions, but these are not as strong as the ones from Northern Lords. There are also 2 dynasty tracks that are strong for maximizing your cities, especially the ability to expand your cities. Overall, this DLC struggle offers some nice fun to be had in the Iberian Peninsula with its unique mechanics and gameplay. The endings can be hard to achieve because of the requirements, but I think they're doable enough that it doesn't detract from the DLC. Also, you can play this struggle in any start date that's currently released. The only downside is that all the fun and benefits are very restricted to the region, so if you don't plan to be here, you can save your money. Otherwise, I do think this DLC is worth the full price. Legacy of Persia is the 3rd flavor pack, and it affects the Iranian region and the Sunni Caliphate. Similar to Fate of Iberia, this DLC's main mechanic is a struggle, except this struggle only occurs in the 867 start date. The struggle itself also only has 2 real phases, stabilization and unrest, with also bonus effects on war and culture and everything. This concession over here is not a phase per se, but a separate counter where if this bar fills up before an ending is taken, then it will just end the struggle with just these minor effects. This can be good if you don't want this struggle to last forever, but bad if you needed more time to complete an ending. You usually have enough time to finish one of these endings, but you're less likely to finish if you start out of the region and come in later. So I would start inside first if you do want to take one of these before concession fires. The endings are you can either dominate the caliph or found a new caliphate, again with cool bonuses. You can also help out the caliphate, or you can resurge the Persian Empire. Similar to Fate of Iberia, the text here for involvement is incorrect. However, instead of needing 80%, you only need 50% of your faith or your culture to be within this Iranian struggle region. So right now my culture is bread, and we have one county that's located located outside of the struggle here. And so once I promote my culture in one county inside, now we'll see that my culture is 2 counties, with one of them being inside the struggle area. My culture bread is actually involved. So you only need 50% of your culture or faith to be within the region to be involved. In terms of other content, there's 7 new traditions, including irrigation experts, beacon of learning, enlightened magnates, fierce independence, frontier warriors, pragmatic creed, all 3 of which unlock a new men-at-arms, and Jurga. There are also 2 tax decrees you can use for clan governments. There's a new dynasty track with a focus on clan realms, and the Fedayin or sacred murder tenet for faiths, and 2 unique innovations, which are unlocked if you have beacon of learning, which gives you a court scholar, and then from there you can go down to sponsor research projects. The chance is really low, so it can be hard to get. This DLC is similar to Fate of Iberia, with lots of fun and flavor to be had in this region. However, you are limited to the 867 start date, and because of the concession, you do want to start in the region if you want to actually finish an ending. The new content is also pretty powerful, so you can easily make an Iranian God Emperor here. Overall, I enjoyed this DLC, so I would pay full price for it again. The final category of DLC are expansions, which are the biggest DLCs. They have 2 subcategories: core expansions, which focus only on one system or mechanic, versus major expansions are bigger and can overhaul multiple systems. There are currently 4 expansions with 1 core and 3 major. The Royal Court DLC focuses on expanding the core and culture systems. The first and most prominent feature is the overhaul of the Royal Court system. Only kings and emperors have royal courts, and without DLC, the throne room page only is for aesthetics, and the second page is for core artifacts, versus if you have the Royal Court DLC, there is now 3 pages instead of 2. In the throne room page, there is also now a hold court button. This gives many events to simulate life as a ruler. Some are good, and some are just plain bad. You also get some legitimacy on completion. Next is the core artifact room, which looks the same, but with the DLC, this room will fill up faster and more completely. The third and new page is the court grandeur page, which has a bar over here measuring how grand your court is. Many things contribute to the court grandeur, mainly through artifacts, but also through the core amenities down here. The amenities are extra bonuses, but cost extra gold for monthly upkeep, and the total cost here scales with your realm size and your innovation era, so the bigger and later in the game you are, the more costly it will keep up an extravagant court, so be mindful of this. People also expect your court to be a certain level of grandeur, and if you have more grandeur than required, you'll get some extra bonuses, versus if you're below this, then you'll get some penalties. There are also bonuses for each tier of grandeur that you get, and these bonuses depend on the type of court that you have, which can be changed for some prestige. The court language down here just shows how many courts in the world are using that language, with more people using the language giving a bigger bonus to the court grandeur. Characters can also get inspirations, and you can sponsor these to create an artifact for you. And the better they are at, the better the result. So if you get a lot of inspirations, you can quickly fill up your court. The commission artifact decision also adds some core artifacts, versus without DLC, you only have access to the inventory artifacts. There are also now 2 decisions for vassals. One is to petition the king for a variety of different requests. Some of the strongest ones are you can ask the king for his title, or another vassal's title if you have a claim on it. So here I have this claim on this duchy, and I can go petition the king. And because the king is my friend, you'll see that he accepted transferring the duchy directly to me, so without any bloodshed, you can increase the size of your realm. And the second decision is to pay homage to your liege. You can either demonstrate submission or give him some benefits. In this example, I paid him some gold and got a really good amount of prestige and some renown. Another major content of this DLC is the cultural customization. You get 3 new options with cultures. The first one is that if you have enough acceptance between a different culture, you can form a hybrid culture. One of the best features is that the hybrid culture will discover all the innovations of both cultures, so you can either use this to combine progress or to quickly catch up with a slower culture. The second thing is that in the traditions, you can also pick the ideal traditions that you want and get rid of ones that you don't want between the 2, and you also get to pick some of the aesthetics. The second option is to diverge your culture. This will let you basically customize your culture. You can pick the ethos and also the martial custom, and you can also pick any tradition you want want. The main thing is you just need enough prestige, but if you have enough prestige, then you can create a very custom culture very quickly. The other advantage is that once you do diverge this culture, you will actually become the head of the culture, and that way you can actually pick the innovations, versus before, because I'm not the head of culture, then I can't pick what the next innovation should be. And the third option is to reform your culture. This will let you change your ethos or your martial custom and not only establish a new tradition, but you can also replace the old ones for more ideal traditions if you want, versus without the DLC, you can only add and not replace. So overall, with all three of these options, you can create very unique or very powerful cultures. The DLC also gives a new dynasty legacy of customs. This mainly has to do with cultural acceptance and progress, and this will help stabilize a large multicultural realm. There are also 3 new council tasks. The Chancellor can bestow royal favor to mainly get max opinion with 1 vassal. The Steward can convince de jure territory, which is used on other rulers to convince them to give you your de jure lands. And the Marshal can manage royal guards to protect yourself and give knight effectiveness. And 5 new traditions, including culture blending, staunch traditionalists, malleable invaders, expert artisans, and musical theorists. This DLC will give you an endless stream of strong artifacts, and the core bonuses are very strong as well. The benefits, however, mostly favor the player, since the AI just isn't as good at making money. Also, the role-playing immersion of the events is a little lackluster, and if I were just getting this DLC for more role-playing, it would not be worth it. However, custom cultures is actually the primary benefit of this DLC, and it unlocks the potential for ridiculous gameplay. Since I'm more of a power player myself, the benefits of this DLC matter more to me, and therefore I would get this DLC when it's on sale, or maybe even at full price.
Tours and Tournaments is a major expansion focusing on improving activities and introducing new ones called Grand Activities. There are 3 grand activities. Grand tours are to allow you to visit your vassals in their homes. When you plan one, you can either have it as Majesty, which will help you gain prestige and opinion. You can intimidate the vassals and gain dread and try to get them out of a faction. Or you can go Taxation to earn some gold. Once you choose the type, you can also choose which vassals to visit. And you can also choose one of 3 activity types. You can tour the grounds to get some control for the vassals' lands. You can host a dinner to get more opinion with them, or have a cultural festival for popular opinion and cultural acceptance. So these tours can help you become closer to your vassals while also getting big rewards, but be careful because traveling away from the safety of your castle also means potential for assassinations. Grand Tournaments is part of the namesake of this DLC, and it's a competition between knights around the world. You can choose up to 5 of 8 different types of competitions, and you can also even participate in them instead of just spectating them. And as you participate or win in tournaments, you'll gain experience in the relevant track, leading up to some great bonuses. The winners will also receive potentially some nice prizes. Grand Weddings expand on weddings by making it an extravagant event with a decent amount of events and stories. You also gain a good amount of resources and modifiers. Proposing a grand wedding also gives you a bonus to marriage acceptance. All the activities, including grand activities, now have intents and options to modify the activity. The activity options are on the right side here, and you can modify these by either spending more gold for more bonuses, or you can actually save gold for less bonuses if you just need the activity itself. Some options are really strong, like for this grand wedding, if I have the best wedding venue, then actually you'll gain some renown and prestige for this wedding. This DLC also introduces the intent, which is on this left side here. This will let you change the focus of the activity. The common ones that are shared among activities would be recreation for reducing stress, murdering someone, seducing someone, and then for the others it depends on the activity. This DLC's activity, intent, and options also carries forward to other DLCs. So because I have the Legends of the Dead DLC available as well, I have these 2 options to spread my legend. So as Paradox releases more activities and more DLCs, this DLC will still affect them by allowing you to choose your intents and your options. This DLC also unlocks the Murder Feast, and you can use this feast to either kill just your target or their entire entourage. So this can be a fun way to get rid of your rivals. You do, however, need to go for 7 perks in the intrigue tree for the Forever Infamous perk. And similar to a Murder Feast, you can also host a Bloody Grand Wedding, which is unlocked by going for the Accomplished Forger perk. Falconry hunts are a second type of hunt, and also gains experience for a second track of the Hunter trait. Accolades are special honors that you can bestow upon a knight, depending on their traits and their skills. The accolade also gives you some bonuses as the liege, and as they level up their accolade through tournaments, battle, duels, and the like, then you'll gain ever increasing benefits accolades, and you can have up to 5 accolades. And lastly, for this DLC, there's one new Dynasty Legacy that is activity focused and even allows a free grand activity for the house head. So this DLC adds a good amount of activities and events to do, especially during periods of peace, which is great for role playing. The activities themselves are pretty powerful, and also the intent and options is very strong, especially since it'll be relevant for even future DLCs. Accolades, while they're not game-breaking bonuses, are still extra bonuses that you can have. So overall, this DLC increases both role-playing and power-playing capacities, so therefore I would get this at full price again. Roads to Power is a major expansion that introduces a new government type and lots of flavor content for the Byzantine Empire, and also landless gameplay. Administrative government is an entirely new way to play, with many events and interactions between vassals, lieges, and noble families. There's a new tab down here that is for administrative government. Every vassal and their dynasty are now part of a noble family, which is anchored by a familial estate. Because of the new landless adventurer mechanic, you can also be a noble family even without any land because you have this estate, and because of that, this person will still gain income and influence, and maybe he was ousted by a rival or because of politics, but thanks to having an estate, he's still in the game and he can eventually retake over his lands or take revenge. There's also many actions you can take to challenge your rivals or to try to gain support of other families to take the Byzantine throne, and this is because succession for an administrative realm for every title, including the emperor title, is now based on an election-like succession process. For the empire title, it's a acclamation succession, versus for vassals, it's a appointment succession. Both, however, are pretty similar because they're almost like an election where there are people with a certain amount of succession score, except this score is determined by different things that can be influenced with the new options to interact in an administrative government. You will mainly be using a new resource called influence, which is gained through activities, buildings, and different things. And in this way, you can use your influence, try to promote your son to becoming the heir. So coming back to this small landless family, if he was influential enough, he could put himself or his heir onto the throne. And the last thing about noble families is there's a family attribute that you could change for different strong bonuses. And to expand on what I mean by there is more interactions, so themes are basically the different vassals that you currently have. They are actually based on the title. So if we click on this title here, this guy is actually governing this duchy. So this guy's along the border, and there's new tools that are both flavorful and practical. Like because he's along the border, he actually has a frontier vassal contract. This actually gives him a pretty massive boost to his defensive capabilities. And if I wanted to, you can change his theme to something else, like focusing more on his military or on imperial administration. Along with this, you can even direct him to do something, like you can ask him to boost his men-at-arms or construct more military buildings. Among the interactions, you can even have your marcher lords summoned to war. So I can ask this vassal to help me expand our borders by fighting against this guy who's right next to him, and also promise him the imperial men-at-arms. The imperial men-at-arms being a new army. So in the military tab, now you not only have your own personal army, there are also imperial armies. These armies are tied specifically to the title and not to the person. So as this ruler is replaced, these soldiers will be loyal to that ruler. But us as the emperor, if we have enough influence, we can actually take control of these imperial troops. So right now I have control of these imperial troops, but if I had more influence, I could keep calling on these troops, and these troops are always going to be men-at-arms. So theoretically, my fighting force can be many thousands of strong men-at-arms. So overall, your army might be a little smaller than before, but if you have a good enough influence, you can call upon all of the imperial armies, and because they're all men-at-arms, it's going to be smaller but stronger. There's also a state faith that makes keeping a realm a single religion easier. You can also change the state faith if you would like to. The Byzantine throne room is also unique and more historical. There's a new dynasty track that is focused on administrative government and influence. There's a new chariot race activity. There are new cultural men-at-arms. There are new traditions. There are a lot of events and flavor for the Fourth Crusade. All of these new interactions and ways to play can also be transferred to a new realm if you just adopt centralized administration. So once you adopt administrative government, then we'll basically unlock the same amount of interaction with our vassals and also all the other bonuses like the noble families or the imperial armies. This DLC also introduced landless gameplay where you literally don't own any land, and instead you have a little camp that gives you certain bonuses and effects, and you can choose from many different camp purposes. Like you can become a group of scholars
warriors, or a mercenary band, or just a plain wanderer, or you can try to reclaim your throne. So normally when you lose a big war, like I lost the entire kingdom of England, that would be game over because you're landless. But because of the new landless gameplay, I'm able to continue as an adventurer, and I'll still have my claims to my kingdom and my titles. And that means over time, if I build up my military, I could become a legitimist and then eventually declare war again for the kingdom, and vice versa. An enemy you've ousted could come back eventually to try to reclaim their throne, which makes for good gameplay and roleplay. So this DLC truly defines what I expect from a major expansion. It adds significant systems and mechanics to create new ways to play, and not only in the Byzantine Empire, but anywhere else you can have administrative government or landless adventuring. The only downside of this DLC is that it's the only one that has slowed my game down, so hopefully they optimize this a bit more in the future. And although I try to summarize this DLC, there really is too much content to break down to just show in one short video. So if anything, that's enough for me to say that I would pay full price for this again. And going forward, I almost want to expect every major expansion to have this level of content. Legends of the Dead is the only core expansion released so far, and it primarily gives the legend system. You can access the legend tab at the bottom left here. Legends represent stories about the deeds of a great ruler, and based on the deeds, there are 3 different types of legend seeds that you can get. Once you have the legend seed, you can start a legend, and finishing it will give varying bonuses based on the quality of the legend, including the access to new legendary buildings, which are very powerful, and you can even stack these if you have enough legends. And as your legend starts, it'll start spreading over time. You also get some legend events that can have some bonuses or interact with nearby rulers, or even change the chapter in your legend. So the legend itself has a generated story about you related to the legend. Once it has spread far enough, then you can increase the quality of the legend. Once your legend has 300 baronies, you can now maximize the quality, and then you can gain the best benefits, including the legendary building, which you can stack, and also some powerful decisions. In this case, the Holy Legend can let you evangelize the realm. This is really powerful because if my realm is different faiths, then I can use this to quickly change the realm to most of my faith. So if I just use this decision, then all of a sudden most of my realm is now converted to insular. So the legends can give some great bonuses. It just takes some time to get there. Legends of the Dead DLC was also released alongside the free patch concerning plagues, and with the DLC you get access to a few new diseases, a special Black Death event chain, the scriptorium building for temple holdings, and the burial site duchy building. You also get access to the funeral activity, which gives you a lot of stress loss, piety, and some legitimacy. So overall, this DLC is a lot smaller than the other expansions, but technically it fulfills its job of creating just one system or mechanic. However, the legend system itself is not that immersive, and the events can get repetitive or annoying. The only saving grace is how crazy the rewards and bonuses are, like using that holy legend to convert your realm. Therefore, I would only get this DLC on sale, and only because of the crazy bonuses it can do for your gameplay. So that was my summary of the contents of each DLC. As a final act, I'll list the rankings of the DLCs in terms of role-playing versus power-playing. For role-playing, I have Roads to Power at the top of my list, since there's so much content, flavor, and most importantly, ways to interact with other characters. The landless gameplay also is great for role-playing, like the return of a deposed king. I have flavor packs at second, which might be controversial, but if you like playing in these regions or if you like the themes, then the flavor packs do add a lot of mechanics and events that are fun and relevant. I have Tours and Tournaments at third. Tours and Tournaments adds 3 activities that are more interactive than most activities, and you'll get a lot of role-playing hours out of the activities. Wandering Nobles adds more activities to do, and it makes you travel around the map more, so I learned more about the map. The only downside is the perks can take time to get, and most times you won't unlock all 3 activity perks unless you're power playing. Wards and Wardens adds a good amount of interaction, and I think the pacing is nice because you won't have children all the time, so the events won't get too repetitive, versus a lot of the events in CK3 can feel repetitive because they happen so often. Royal Court has a bunch of court events, but most of them are either bad or just so random that you don't want to hold court. The Petition Liege decision is nice, but it could be more interactive and not just an opinion check. Friends and foes will increase the number of friends and rivals you have, but as the game currently is, there's not much you can really do with those relationships. The build up to the relationships is also through random events, so it doesn't feel as interactive. Legends of the Dead could have been so much better for role-playing, but honestly the process of spreading legends is so marginalized. The events are very repetitive and it just becomes a numbers game and waiting for years to get your legend upgraded. Also, the randomly generated story at first is cool, but it quickly becomes repetitive and therefore unexciting. As a final opinion, I think role-playing should have more interactions and not just more random events. Random events are fine in general, but it would be better for the events to be really tailored to what you're doing. Like even for the well-received Tours and Tournaments DLC, I can get 10 people choking on one grand tour. For Powerplaying, the ranking is starkly different. I have Royal Court at the top because for me, the custom cultures is just too strong. It opens so many different build possibilities. Legend of the Dead is second because of just simply how strong the legend rewards are and the legendary buildings. Northern Lords is one of my favorite DLCs because it buffs up the Vikings to such a degree that they can accomplish any crazy build that I want. Tours and Tournaments grand activities give really good benefits, and the intents and options increases bonuses and is also relevant for any future new activity. Wards and Wardens makes your children stronger overall, since you can give them perfect traits, and there's also a bunch of free skills. In Wandering Nobles, the inspection and expedition activities are very powerful. The only downside again is the time it takes to get the perks, but if we're power playing and stacking artifacts, universities, and grand rights, then getting those 2 perks is not a problem. Roads to Power has a lot of content, but most of it is geared for role playing. The power playing aspects would be the estate, which is just more free resources, and also the potential ability to abuse influence, although this is only relevant for administrative governments. Also, one benefit of administrative government is that there is no realm dissolution, so you won't have to worry about your big realm breaking apart. Legacy of Persia and Fate of Iberia are mainly relevant to their area only. The other content like dynasty tracks and traditions are nice but not game breaking. I have Friends and Foes last because actively having more rivals and having big family feuds actively detracts from God Emperorhood, so it's best to not have this active if you're power playing. Also, a note on power playing. Some people hate on it and claim DLCs make the game too easy, which is partially true, but I like to think of it as expanding the boundaries for crazy possibilities. It may not be historically accurate, but this is mostly a single player simulation, and pushing mechanical boundaries is also a fun way to play, at least for me. So that's my guide on the contents of each DLC and my personal ranking of the DLCs. Hopefully the info can give you a better idea of what each DLC has, and you can then decide whether or not you're interested in spending money for that content. If you liked this video, please subscribe and give a like. It helps me tremendously, so thank you so much. Leave a comment if you have any questions or video requests. There's also a request list in my community tab that I'm slowly working on. Thanks again from Bread God and have a good day.